In this lesson, we're going to make some minor tweaks to our particle system, and then we're going to add some collisions to make our bricks bounce off of our ground plane. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's select our particle flow source, and let's hit Z on our keyboard just to zoom in on that, just so we can work in this area a little bit easier. Now let's go ahead and actually scrub our timeline and just kind of take a look at our behavior of our bricks. And you'll see that they come out in this nice and neat fashion, and they're coming out parallel, and it's just a very polite scene going on here with our particle system. And what we want to do is make this a little bit more chaotic. So let's go ahead and go to our particle view, and let's actually add some spin to these bricks. So we don't have a spin operator in here, so we need to go ahead and add that. So we're just going to click and drag a spin operator in here. And you'll see that our bricks begin to spin as they come out. So they're coming out kind of even, and then they spin as the timeline goes across. Okay? Alright, so that adds a little bit of chaos. And what we want to do now is actually go ahead and start adding in some different forces and deflectors to give this a bit of more realism. So let's go ahead and create some gravity in here to make these bricks fall to the ground. So we're just going to move our particle view over, and I'm going to go to my create panel, and I'm going to make sure that I'm under forces and create gravity. So let me move this to the other side just so we can see what we're doing, and just create gravity anywhere in your scene here. And you want to make sure that you keep these separate here, and just kind of make a mental note of which one is which, because the wind and gravity emitters look very, very similar. Okay, now gravity is pointing downward, and so I'm just going to make a mental note of that. And what we want to do is go ahead and associate our gravity to our particle system. So what we want to do is go ahead and drag in a force into our new event, and we have our force. And what we need to do now is go ahead and add our gravity to this force operator. So let's do by list and choose gravity. Okay, so now whenever we move this, you'll see that our bricks begin to fall, but they fall through our ground plane. So now what we need to do is go ahead and create a collision. So let's go ahead and scrub this back here, and let's go ahead and bring in a collision test. Okay, so let's bring this in and drag in collision. And what we need to do now is actually create a deflector. Okay, so let's move this over to the left, and let's go to our drop down box under space warps and go to deflectors. Now you'll see that we have several different ones here. We have P omniflect, we have U omniflect, S deflector, S omni deflector, U deflector, and deflector. Okay, I want to give you just kind of a broad overview here. With a P omni deflector, the P stands for planar. So what we can actually do is pick a planar object for this deflector to work on. So in this case, we could actually use a P omniflect because we want this plane to be our actual deflector object. Now, U stands for universal, so this will work with planar objects and spherical objects. That's what S stands for here. Okay, so just to make things easy, I'm going to use a U deflector. So I'm just going to drag this into my scene, and you'll see that this looks like a ground plane, and it's got an arrow that looks like it's impacting and colliding, and it kind of bouncing off of our surface here. Okay, now what I need to do is go ahead and actually pick the object that this U deflector is going to work with. So in this case, we're going to pick our ground plane here. Okay, so that has been associated, and now we need to actually add our U deflector to our collision. So let's do by list and U deflector and hit select. Okay, so now let's go ahead and move our particle view over here, and let's go ahead and move our time slider, and you'll see that the bricks begin to collide with our ground plane, and you'll notice that they're really bouncing nice and high here. So it's not really bricks, it's more like rubber super balls or something like that. So let's go ahead and adjust that bounce. So let's go ahead and close this out here. And we need to actually adjust this in our U-Deflector options. So let's go to our Modify panel with our U-Deflector selected. So if you don't have that selected, just click on your icon here, and you should be able to see this in your Modify panel. Now, let's go ahead and adjust our bounce, and I'm going to go ahead and start out at 0.5 just to see what that looks like. And you'll see that our bricks come down, they bounce a little bit, okay? And you'll notice that they're kind of staying together, so our particles, our explosion particle system is really trying to stay nice and neat. It's not really giving us any chaos like we're looking for. So let's go ahead and actually add a little bit of chaos. So let's pull this up here. We'll notice that our bricks begin to separate. And let's take this up pretty high. Let's go to 75%, just see what that looks like. So our bricks come down, they bounce a little, and some of them bounce a little bit higher than others, and that's okay. And then they begin to spread out. Alright, so now we have another problem to where our bricks are coming out and they're just sliding across this plane. They're not really slowing down. And we can adjust that by using our friction. So let's take this up. And we don't want to go real high on this. I'll go to like 15% and just kind of look at that. And I'm pretty happy with the way that's looking there. Okay, now what we need to do now is go ahead and end this lesson, and we're going to go ahead and actually create some debris whenever our bricks actually hit this ground plane. So it's kind of like as if these bricks are going to be breaking apart. So we're going to talk about how we can do that in our next lesson.